depot home from Whitford's train station. Why is it that Roger Cook does not answer any questions about this matter? Will we go to the election on the 8th of March and he will still have failed to answer a question in respect to this matter? It's simply not good enough for him to say the matter is before the courts. We're not asking him whether he thinks that there was criminal conduct on the behalf of this person who is now before the courts. We're asking what the Cook Labor government did with respect to their obligation and duty to supervise this registered sex offender. Are we seriously going to go to the election on the 8th of March and not have an answer to that question, Mr Cook? The choice is clear. Western Australians already know, every Western Australian knows, that Roger Cook is a failed health minister. He doesn't want the health portfolio, and word has it that his replacement doesn't want it either. In contrast, the Liberal Party has a leader who has rolled up her sleeves, announced health policy after health policy, and is prepared to take on that portfolio just to demonstrate how seriously we take the health crisis in Western Australia. Meanwhile, we have a Premier who says nothing when it comes to these issues of law and order, particularly with violence against women. We've got a Premier who has announced that he will allow offenders out on parole for life. The Western Australian community expects that murderers on a life sentence be kept behind bars, not released on parole for life. We have a Cook Labor government that continues to refuse to release the details of prison fugitives. They continue to keep them secret. In contrast, the Madam Liberal government will release the details of every single one of these prison fugitives because, again, the people of Western Australia deserve to know exactly who these individuals are. Meanwhile, while Roger Cook does nothing, when offender after offender continues to cut the ankle bracelets that are supposed to be used to supervise and monitor them, the Madam Liberal government have announced that these individuals, once captured, because we will have released their details to the public as prison fugitives, they'll be returned to jail. And a Madam Liberal government have announced that this year we will implement and establish a judicial commission. Unlike the Cook Labor government, the WA Labor government, who have announced it no less than 5 times, and despite having total control of the Parliament for the last 4 years, have done nothing in this space. Enough is enough, and we're calling on Western Australians to back in the Liberal Party and Libby Medham at this election.
Can you explain in a little more detail how this disclosure system will work?
Yeah, look, a disclosure scheme which is proposed has worked in other jurisdictions successfully, such as South Australia, New South Wales, and its implementation first began in 2014 in the United Kingdom under the heading of Clare's Law. It is about ensuring where there is reason for alarm or concern regarding a particular partner, that individual can seek information through police about the partner's violent history, if there is such a history. It also means family members can seek that information as well.
Does it work like...
If police also have reason for concern, they can reach out to that individual as well.
So could it kind of work like a sex offenders register, or would there be an online portal, or is it you purely have to go to police?
Yeah.
And I'm assuming run through some hoops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have the benefit of learning from other jurisdictions. It will not be a register, it will be a disclosure scheme. So if there is reason for concern about an individual's safety, that is when that information may be provided.
So what's the threshold to
Well,
get on? Is it an AVO breach? Is it violent offences? What's the threshold?
It can be a number of elements. Obviously convictions in relation to family and domestic violence, but it may be convictions in relation to other concerning matters, such as in relation to other forms of violence. It will be up to police if there is a level of alarm that they feel, and they will have the ability to share that information with the individual who is in that relationship. Also, furthermore, if family members have reason for alarm or concern, they can seek some disclosure, but that information will be provided to the individual in the relationship.
So it will be by police discretion?
There will be a level of discretion, but obviously the threshold will be around convictions relating to violence.
Can you explain why Darren Spackman's latest comments prompted you to call for his resignation when his previous comments did not?
Those comments are particularly egregious. They will not be tolerated. On learning of such comments, I immediately contacted the State Director and told him to direct Darren Spackman to resign.
Well, what was the difference? I mean, describing a break-in as up in the country is pretty offensive to the 40% of the population in the Kimberley that are Aboriginal.
These comments are particularly egregious in relation to the matters that were made public or provided to me yesterday. On receipt of that information, I acted straight away, spoke to the State Director and directed him to tell Mr Spackman to resign. He has now resigned.
Do you feel let down by your party's candidate vetting standards?
I've already made a comment in relation to this matter. On receiving that information, I have directed the State Director to tell Mr Spackman to resign, and that is exactly what's happened.
Is it frustrating that it seems to be describing your campaign announcement
Well,
for oxygen?
we are here to talk about how a Liberal government will keep women safe. And that is what I am intending to outline. I have dealt with the matter in relation to Mr Spackman, and I'll leave my comments there.
How many times have you met Mr Spackman?
I haven't met him at all.
Is that the problem? You're left to answer for candidates you had no say in choosing and have not even met.
I have responded to these concerns when they were made light, and I have acted by speaking to the State Director, and he has now resigned.
And the comments
I will not tolerate this kind of behaviour and such comments from any candidate. And I've made that position clear.
And the comments he made, because some of them cannot be reported, but I know you've heard more of them. I mean, they were racially charged, weren't they? And they were extensive and not just comments about his views 10 years ago.
They are offensive, they will not be tolerated, and this is exactly why I told the State Director to direct Mr Spackman to resign. He has now resigned.
Are you disappointed that the vetting process didn't pick up these values that he held?
I've already answered these questions. I have responded to this matter when it came to hand, and he resigned.
But your vetting process is letting your party down. It's letting you down as a leader.
My focus is on outlining our plan for a better future for Western Australia. When these matters came to light, I acted, and Mr Spackman has now resigned.
He's now considering running as an independent. Does that worry you?
Look, that is a matter for Mr Spackman.
Do you think many in the Kimberley community share the views that you heard him state this week?
Look, my focus is on outlining our plan for a better future for Western Australia. And when I'm out and about in the community, what they want to hear is how we will address the issues of crime across the community, fix a broken health system, deliver more homes for Western Australians. We've just been through the largest boom our state has ever seen, but on the metrics that really count to the people outside in Western Australia, this government have failed.
He has said this morning that he's just not PC. I mean, was it the language or was it the racial nature of
He
what
is no longer a candidate of the Liberal Party.
Yes, but why?
I directed the State Director to tell him to resign. He is now resigned. I will not tolerate this behaviour.
But what about that behaviour pushed it over the edge for you?
Well, it is clear such behaviour is offensive and it will also not be tolerated.
Was it the language or was it because it was racial?
It will not be tolerated. I've made my position clear. I acted as soon as I had that information, and he is no longer a Liberal candidate.
It will not be tolerated. What is it?
It is clear the comments of Mr Spackman were offensive. I took action straight away, and he is no longer a candidate of the Liberal Party. I directed the State Director to tell him to resign.
What was his response?
I've nothing more to say in relation to this matter. I've answered the questions We are here talking about how the WA Liberal Party will address the scourge when it comes to family and domestic violence across the state. Family and domestic violence up 76%. Western Australia is the most unsafe state to be a woman.
You had to find candidates for 58 seats. That was always going to be a challenge. Is that why the vetting process has failed?
I've answered these questions. My focus is on the issues that Western Australians are talking to me about. That is about getting a home over their, a roof over their head. It's about fixing a broken health system. It's about dealing with the scourge of violence across our community, including family and domestic violence, which is up 76%.
Would you agree that your message, your law and order message this week has been it's been harder to get across because of these issues we're having with candidates? Surely you must agree that has occurred.
I've answered these questions. My focus is on outlining our plan for a better future for Western Australia.
What I'm confused by is where is the line? When you say the behaviour will not be tolerated, there have been questions about other candidates.
I've answered these
where
questions.
Is the line?
I've answered these questions. We have dealt with this matter. It's offensive language. I directed the State Director to tell Mr Spackman to resign. He is no longer a Liberal candidate for the Liberal Party.
This morning the Premier said the issue wasn't just with this candidate and asked where do you draw the line, mentioning that other candidates are...
I'll not be lectured by Roger Cook. He has failed the people of Western Australia when it has come to family and domestic violence. Western Australia is the most unsafe state to be a woman. And under Roger Cook we have a broken health system, we have law and order out of control. We have a housing crisis and Western Australians are struggling more than ever before to put food on the table.
After 2021, the system was reviewed. Does the pre-selection process need to be reviewed again?
Look, those questions are for the State Director. What we are talking about here today is our plan to keep women and children in Western Australia safe. I've answered those other questions.
So as party leader, you don't have an opinion about the pre-selection process?
I am here focused on the issues that Western Australians care about, and what Western Australians are talking to me about is about feeling safe in their homes and in their communities.
But a part of that is how to deal with youth crime, isn't it? And this was one of your candidates expressing strident views about how to deal with youth crime. Do any other people in your party share those views?
I have outlined our position. These comments of that candidate will not be tolerated, and he is no longer a candidate of the Liberal Party. I have directed the State Director to tell him to resign. He has now resigned. Those comments will not be tolerated.
He's still on the ballot paper as a Liberal candidate. That's a bit embarrassing, isn't it?
Those comments will not be tolerated. I've made my position clear and I've taken action as soon as that information was made available to me.
Have you asked the State Director to...
I'm not going into conversations with the State Director.
But
what I've asked the State Director to do, I've asked the State Director to tell Mr Spackman to resign. He has now resigned.
Has there been any wider communications to other candidates to maybe not speak to media or, you know...
I'm not going into those matters. What Western Australians out there are asking me about is how we can fix a broken health system, how we can address law and order issues across the state, how we can deliver more homes, given we have a cohort of working poor who are struggling to get a roof over their head. How is it that after 8 years, during the largest boom our state has ever seen, Western Australians' lives aren't better off?
Last month you said you wouldn't stand in front of the Indigenous flag, and then this morning you wrote an op-ed against Aboriginal cultural heritage laws. What message does this send to voters on these issues?
The matter in relation to heritage laws is a matter of private property rights, and I don't think you can draw a conclusion from them both. But what is clear is that we do need more engagement when it comes to looking at the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act, which will include farmers, landowners and Aboriginal groups. Because what we have seen under the Cook Labor government is a decision where an individual landowner has had to pay hefty legal costs for undertaking work on his own property.
Members of the WA Liberal Party have opposed reproductive health care aspects such as abortion. Would you say that the your party listen to the concerns of women, particularly young women?
Well, I'm not sure what you're referring to. In relation to abortion, that is a conscience matter, and both parties, both Liberal and Labor, there have been different views across the parliamentary parties. I had supported the abortion laws, and changing the current abortion laws is not on my agenda.
How do you plan to meaningfully engage with Aboriginal people, given you won't stand in front of the Aboriginal flag? If elected as Premier and you say you want to rewrite the cultural heritage laws, how will you meaningfully engage with Aboriginal people?
Well, in relation to the flag, this is about Western Australians being united as one state.
How
This is about representing all Western Australians, regardless of race, and not being divided by race.
Doesn't it divide race more if you're saying you're not going to stand in front of an Aboriginal flag?
Absolutely not. I reject that. The Western Australian flag represents all Western Australians, regardless of whether you're part of the oldest continuing culture or have a background with a different culture. This is about being united behind one flag.
It's good enough for your alliance partners to submit their promises to Treasury for costings. Why won't the Liberals do that?
Steve is also here, but we will provide the costings information in the usual manner, as Labor had in opposition at the last election.
We're only 72 hours out from early voting, though. Don't the voters deserve to
Well,
know
we will
about the
take an
costings?
approach that Labor have in opposition.
Are you confident there's no more skeletons in the Liberal Party closet?
Our focus is on the people of Western Australia, and what you have seen in relation to the matter with Mr Spackman is that such comments will not be tolerated. I directed the State Director to immediately tell Mr Spackman to resign. He is no longer part of the Liberal Party parliamentary team.
You say you would rewrite the
Oh,
cultural...
not parliamentary team, obviously Liberal Party team.
Sorry, you said you'd rewrite the Cultural Heritage Act if you get elected Premier. How would you do that and why?
Look, we will provide further detail in relation to this, but quite clearly this piece of legislation and how it's being implemented by the Cook Labor government represents an overreach.
Are you playing divisive politics on Indigenous issues here?
In relation to the Cultural Heritage Act, that is about private property owners having an ability to undertake minor works on their land.
Would you say that naval flags are divisive, the other official flags of Australia? Because we do not stand in front of a naval flag for an engagement like that. It seems a little strange.
We're talking about the flags at Duma House. We're talking about the comments that I would be making if I had the privilege to be the Premier of Western Australia. And if I had that privilege, I would be speaking to all Western Australians, regardless of race.
Can I just ask, the Labor's announced this morning funding to upgrade Como Secondary College. They've suggested that the seat of South Perth is in play. It's obviously one you very much need to win to improve numbers. Are you worried? Is there cause for concern in South Perth?
I'll say two things. The Cook Labor government have been in power for 8 years and have just woken up to the fact that Como Secondary College needs an upgrade. But we provided a commitment to upgrade this college several weeks ago. And on the 11th hour, just before the beginning of early polls, the Premier's just woken up to the fact that this college desperately needs upgrades. This is an upgrade that we are absolutely committed to doing and undertaking because what we have here in our candidate for South Perth, the Deputy Mayor, a lawyer, somebody who has a family here, who is somebody who's committed to the upgrade of Como Secondary College. And what we have under the Cook Labor government, who only on the eve of an election has actually woken up to the fact that this school desperately needs an upgrade. I should also point to the fact that their original promise to Como Secondary College was a business case, which falls very well short, and it's thanks to the advocacy of Bronwyn War that we've finally seen Roger Cook, who boasts about billions of dollars, put his hand in his pocket and actually make a commitment to this important project.
There is a difference in promises. Your promise the Labor is 30 million. Where is that discrepancy coming
Well,
from?
we are committed to the upgrade of Como Secondary College. If we are elected, we will ensure that that takes place. It is very clear that such a commitment would not have been made if it wasn't for the advocacy of Bronwyn War, because what we have with the Cook Labor government is a government that is more interested in themselves and have completely ignored the issues surrounding South Perth since they've been since the Labor candidate has been elected.
Bronwyn, do you feel like you've been dealt a compliment by the Premier, having made the promise first?
Look, can I just say that for me it's just about getting things done, and however that happens, I'm happy for it. So, yes.
Can you explain the discrepancy in promise? Can you guys get it done cheaper? Is that what's happening here, or?
Well, our $20 million was for stage 1. Obviously, there's stages 2 and 3. So the school obviously needs a rebuild. I have watched for so many years other schools being promised millions of dollars, and those schools are in a far better state than our school.
Are you comfortable that your Facebook history won't come back to bite you?
Oh,
No?
well,
Sorry,
yeah. Shows
can you
that
repeat that question, sorry?
Well, I mean, we've gone through a week of...
Oh, I'm comfortable. My Facebook won't come back to bite me.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Do you want to see the stage? I'll let you on stage left.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, your Nationals colleagues are going to submit to Treasury. Why won't you? I know you said yesterday that you would provide a date. It'll be in the last week of the campaign. You would provide a date. Do you have that date now?
No, we don't. And what the Nationals do is entirely up to them. This back and forth on the costings has been going on for years. They do it in opposition. It's perfectly normal, but I think it's time to draw an end to this silliness, if you like, around costing. So I'm calling on the Treasurer and the Premier to commit to I'm calling on the Premier and the Treasurer to commit to a budget office, a parliamentary budget office, an independent parliamentary budget office that can do this, and then oppositions will feel comfortable submitting their costings to that independent body, and then we can get this done in an orderly and transparent process. At the moment, this back and forth, which is normal, has been going on for years. I'm committing the Liberal Party to doing it. I want to hear from the Labor Party if they think it's also a good idea.
The Treasurer yesterday said that I think she accepts that possibly the costings won't be released until the end of the campaign, but in previous, when they were in opposition and they got a independent audit of their costings, they had revealed the name of that firm by this stage. Why won't you reveal the name of that firm? And she did suggest that you were embarrassed by that firm. Is that the case?
So what we're doing as an opposition is perfectly normal, and we're doing it in the perfectly normal time frame. What I'm suggesting is it's time for that independent budget office, the parliamentary budget office, that then the costings can be done away from Treasury, which is an arm of government, and we can see a transparent process for both government and opposition.
But will you reveal the name of that firm?
As I've said, what we're doing is perfectly normal. When our costings are released, you'll be aware of who's doing it.
Did the
You've said that it's
Nationals
perfectly
warn you?
normal, but you've also said that it's time to end the silliness. Can you just end the silliness as part of this election?
Well, sadly, I'm an opposition, so I can't put forward a parliamentary budget office. I would love to.
But as far as
If I could do that today, I absolutely wouldn't. I commit the Liberal Party to doing so.
Did the Nationals warn you before declaring that they're going to submit their costings to Treasury?
What the Nationals do is entirely up to them.
Does
But
it
surely, as
frustrate
an
you?
alliance, you need to talk to each other.
We talk to the National Party on a regular basis, and what they're doing around their budget costings is entirely up to them, and that's appropriate.
Did they tell you about it beforehand?
We have had discussions with the National Party on a number of matters every day.
About that?
I won't go into details about those campaign discussions,
So they didn't?
as you'd imagine.
So they didn't tell you before going public and dropping this bomb on you?
I've answered the question.
But they've provided Rita with a bullet for their gun, which they've fired this morning. Surely that must frustrate you.
What frustrates me is not having the ability to put our costings in front of an independent parliamentary budget office. That would make this a transparent, open process for the voters of Western Australia. That's not the case. They thought that was a really good idea in opposition, and then the second they got into government, absolutely not. It's time for the Premier and the Treasurer to commit to that process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All good? Thanks, everyone. How are you, Hamish?
Good.